You'd base them in base. Let's start from go a little bit further up to get a flying start. Let's start from the tiny Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar. You see, the tiny Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines from the bottom. There's a little asterisk next to Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar. The tiny Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar, man, Rebbe Shimon ben Elazar says the name Rameir, Ap b'shtar ayidei achirim. By shtar, the shtar has to be given to other people. Lo ayidei atzmo, not on his own. In other words, the shtar doesn't go to him directly. Now, obviously, it's not clear what kind of shtar we're talking about. If it's a get shiur, it should go to the Eved himself, right? Obviously, the Eved himself should get the release directly, just like a woman gets the get directly. So it's a little bit difficult what exactly we're talking about. But I don't know. I don't know how to reconcile, how to interpret it. But the Pashup shot here is that Taka, the shtar shiur goes to other people, not to the Eved himself. What does it mean by shtar when released by a document? It's via others, not via himself. Does not mean lo rabo no sin shtar lachem sheyetze avdo lecherus. The master gives the bill of release to others so this Eved should go free. So too, the rabo no sin kesav lacher. The master gives the money to other people sheyetze avdo lecherus, in order the slave should go free. And again, according to the Ritbaz, that means that the giving of the money in and of itself to somebody else releases the slave. According to the shiur Yisrael, means the master gives the money to another person who then pays the master back with that money in order to get the slave released. And I prefer the shiur Yisrael's pshat. Rabbi Avun said, Asya Kerebi. Now I'm going to interpret this according to shiur Eretz Yisrael as well. So this is that which you have to give the money to another individual, not to Eved himself. Why can't you give the money to Eved himself? Give the money to the Eved, and the Eved will give you back the money and buy himself out, right? So why doesn't that work? Why can't the Eved get the money from the master and then use the money to release himself? What? Okay, so that's like Rebbe. So we'll see. To Rebbe. To Rebbe Amar, Rebbe said, a person can release half of his slave. Such a tremendous chiddush, because obviously the simple understanding is that a person cannot release half of his slave, right? How can you release half of your slave and not the other half? The Rabbanon, the rabbis hold you can't release half of your slave. Says more Islam. They hold you can, but only be'eved shulshut. If two of you own the slave together, one of the parts can release the slave. Aval eved shekula shalo, but an eved who's entirely yours, you can't. Why can't you release the slave? So shaniu, because release actually is half of it. Shaniu shu zochim mimino l'smola. If you give half of him, give him half of himself, it's like giving from his right hand to his left hand. I mean, in other words, you have to release him to another party, right? And he remains your Eved. So therefore, it's like releasing from the right hand to left. That's me and Jesse, right? Now, the Bavli argues on this reason. Bavli gives a different reason. The Bible says theoretically it should work. Why doesn't it work? Because we learn that from a woman. Just like you can't divorce half a woman, you can't divorce half an Eved. And the Yerushalmi wants to say that there are basic differences between the two perspectives. He'll be a ramification later on Daf Yudalid. But also, according to the Yerushalmi Bavli, it seems like the concept of Gito v'Yodem Boim Ka'achas, that when he's released, simultaneously becomes an entity, can even work when you release half a slave. The average release becomes an independent entity. According to the Yerushalmi, you can't be, there's no such thing as a half an entity. Either you're an entity or you're not an entity. And that's why it goes from your right hand to, like going from the right hand to the left hand. Okay, so that's Machlokas and Svara. as to what's going on here. Okay? So says the Gemara, that's a good svara the rabbis came up with. Later, Rebbe Shu Kazachim Yamin L'Smol. Doesn't Rebbe hold to this shortcoming? That's like give me your right hand to your left hand. Islay says yes, that's a problem. B'mizakilo, well, actually, Islay, semicolon. He held that problem. Here, b'mizakilo de acher. Even for Rebbe, you can release after your slave. It's only if you were mizakeh the half a slave to another outside party, say, listen, be zoicha in half of him for himself. So the Evan himself cannot be zoicha in a half. Because Yerushalmi, as far as Yerushalmi, the only way to do it is by releasing a half to the custody of somebody else, who of course is not his new master, but it requires him in order to free.
Or you're becoming a shiur.
So the other party releases him. Oh yeah, it's not, you're right, but it's not a two-stage process, right? It's a simultaneous process. That's true. It could work like that, but it is simultaneous. Okay. Says the Gemara now, why don't the rabbis hold that it can be mizakeh through somebody else? It's a good svara. The rabbis should agree to that as well. So here comes the principle which we were leading up to the whole time. A new principle, a new yisoy. Simon Rabbanan, the rabbis hold, if you could do it yourself, that somebody could do it on your behalf. It's like shlichus. Anything you could do, somebody could do on your behalf. But here the Eved can't do it himself, right? So you can't circumvent that problem by bringing in a third party. Right? The third party can only be as good as the Evan himself. If the Evan himself can't do it, so then the third party can't do it. Okay? Yeah, something like that. But it's not exactly the same thing, but it's like amigo, you know. If amigo that I couldn't do it, I can farm it out to somebody else to do it. But here, since I can't do it, I can't farm it out to somebody else. So that's it. If Shein Royalist goes to the outside, and Royalist goes to the acher. Rabbi Omer, Rabbi says, no, you can. It's not real shlichus. True, it's a machlokas later on Kiddushin. Schiyas like shlichus. Shlichus or schiyas is something else, right? So it's not like shlichus. You can delegate, or it's not delegation, but rather the third party can assume more authority than the individual himself. But even though the Eved does not have the authority to be zoche in half of himself, because it's like right hand to left hand, a third party eliminates that difficulty according to Rebbe and can't do it on his behalf. Okay? So that's Rebbe's svara. Now, Rabbi Avun had said that when it said in the previous brisa, that an Eved can't get his star shiur himself, but somebody else can get it for him, that Rabbi Avun says like this svara of Rebbe. Because like Rabbanan, it doesn't wash. Like Rabbanan, either you can get it yourself or nobody can get it for you, right? But like Rebbe, even if you can't get it yourself, somebody else can get it for you. So that statement of Rabbi Shimon Elazar and Aaron Rameir is consistent with this svara of Rebbe. Okay? This is a new case, a very interesting one. He picked up a mitzvah. V'amar, and he said, Al Yedei, the Shaitar Sel Change Town Manas, same idea. I'm picking up by the condition, She'ez Kebo Ani V'lo Rabbi. I'm an Eved, but I'm only picking it for my own benefit. I'm not picking up for my master's benefits, only for myself. Right. So Tanakam, so Al Korcha Zocha Hu V'Rabbo. Al Korcha, it's his, and his means it becomes his master's. In other words, it's not a partnership between the two of them. Rather, it's his and it's his master's as a result. Okay? Or perhaps, maybe not. It's only one side. Perhaps Ozocho Bo Hu V'Lo Rabbo. Perhaps that's not true. Perhaps, in fact, there is such a thing. That's our question. Now, It's obviously a very strange question because whatever a master gets, a slave gets, a master gets. So the question is, so the way the shiur wants to make it more relevant is that Rabbi Meir said previously. Well, I should start with Rabbanan. Rabbanan say that an Eved can get his own shtar shiur or his own kesef, right? He can get money and redeem himself with the money. Rabbi Meir said other people have to redeem money. So the shiur wants to, according to Rabbanan, well, that the master can give the slave himself money, and the slave can then redeem himself. He is a separate entity. Yerushalmi holds according to that he's a separate entity. Not like the Bavli. We always tell the Bavli, Mashkon Eved Kona Rabbo. No. Yerushalmi says if we can give him the money in order to redeem himself, that means he's a separate entity. According to Meir, says the money can't go to him. It can only go to other people, third parties who can then redeem him. So according to them, we have the question, what about where the guy remains an Eved, right? Do I say, in this case over here, do I say, is the fact that the Acherim must get the money in order to redeem it indicate that he can never acquire something to himself? Or perhaps there is some way when it's that he can acquire money for himself. What it is, we don't know, but maybe there is some way. So again, according to Rabbanan, the way the shiur explains it, for sure an Eved, according to Yerushalmi, can be zoicha for himself. He can, just like he can get money from his master in order to redeem himself. According to Meir says he can't get money from his master to redeem himself. Perhaps there's some way to salvage this case, however, which Yerushalmi is grasping for, where he can acquire a mitzvah for himself and not for his master. Right?
Types of cases, because one case the master's giving you the money to redeem him.
Yeah.
And here he's just picking up an video. It's not. So when the master gave the money, it was stuff to just give for him. Here it's just a maker which picking up the video. So there's no intention when he picks it up. So it has to belong to the.
Yeah, it could be you're right, but what I was thinking is slightly different. I was thinking that the Bavli holds of the concept of Gita v'Yodeboim Kachas, right? Simultaneously, an Eved gets his get and becomes an entity. So therefore, the Bavli holds. We always say Mashkon Eved Kona Rabbo. Hi, he can get money at the end. I'm not sure. Maybe this is what you're saying. Hi, he can get money at the end in order to acquire himself. But that's because this is the process of release. But until then, he's not an illegal entity in and of itself at all. Okay, that's what you're saying. Whereas according to the Yerushalmi doesn't recognize this Gita v'Yodeboim Kachas. Yerushalmi says if he can get money to redeem himself, he has elements of his own identity. If his elements of his own identity, then he could acquire a mitzvah for himself. The question is, however, is that true according to Meir, who says he cannot redeem himself? So what about acquiring a mitzvah for himself? Okay, it's more or less the same thing. Okay, so it says, let's learn from here. You are forsworn from getting benefit to your son-in-law, right? But you want to give to your daughter most, you want to give her money, nevertheless, right? Happens all the time. I says to her, they're given to you as a gift, as long as your husband, that fink, does not have any reshus and does not have any jurisdiction over them. She asks, you take it and you put it in your own mouth, he doesn't get anything. So you effectively sever the wife from the husband in terms of this nether, right? Now, Tani, there's a price that says that he has to add on the following. He has to say, v'lo lech. Say it's not even yours. It's not his, it's not yours, it's mine, till you put it into your mouth. Okay? Who says it's got to say that it's not only is it not your husband's, but it's even not yours? Rabbi Meir? It must be Rabbi Meir. The Rabbi Meir, Avid Yad Eved Kiad Rabbo. Just like Rameir holds, Yad Eved is Kiyad Rabbo, the master, the slave is like the master. So too, he must hold that Yad, the same thing. We can put in the words, we just say it outside, that Yad Isha Kiyad Bailo, right? So there's no such thing as telling her it's only yours and not his. No, it's meaningless. The only way to do it is to say it's not yours either. Until you put it to your mouth, it's mine. That's the only way to make it work. Okay? So b'matona, right? So b'matona, the same thing by yad isha kiyabala. So therefore, it has to be, if that's the case, by the eved who picks up a mitzvah for himself, it's a meaningless gesture, right? There is no self, right? Says Krabi Meir, hu yad isha kiyad bala b'mitzvah. So the same thing is true that I would like to say like this. Add in a few words here. Krabi Meir hu yad isha kiyad bala and hu yad eved kiyad rabo. I'm sorry. Yeah, I punctuated wrong. That's why I got confused. The Meir yad eved kiyad rabo b'matana Krabi Meir, right? Comma, right? On the other hand, hu yad isha kiyad bala and yad eved kiyad rabo, either we throw in the words or not, kirabana. In other words, the rabbis might not necessarily go there, might say the opposite. That maybe by the rabbis might contend, just like the slave can it's not, the rabbis can contend, just like the slave can get money to release himself, so too the woman can get something on her own, right? Because it means separate entities, and even without saying lo lech. According to Meir, you have to say lo lech. You, the wife, don't have any jurisdiction over that. And since by Mitzio you can't say that, so the Mitzio automatically goes to the master, because there's nobody to say it in that case, right? You find something hefty. Whereas as Rabbanan holds the exact opposite. Rabbanan holds, no. You can give something even to your daughter without giving it to her husband, right? Even without saying lo lech. It can go to her and not get to the husband. So say that even Evid finds something, he can keep it and not necessarily give it to his master. Okay? Says the Gemara, I'm Rabbi Zira. Rabbi Zira said, Kumi Rabbi Mona for Rabbi Mona. Wait a minute. Shani, this is different. Shu kizocha midas acher. Because here, there's somebody else's das here. Now, means perhaps here, now, what he's saying is kind of strange, and Mark's immediately going to reject it. What he's saying here is, perhaps the reason why you have to say lo lech to the daughter is because the woman is not independent to decide on how the kinyan's going to work. In other words, she has a correspondence to you. So that's why she has to hear from you what you want to be the terms. Right? So maybe there you have to say lo lech, and otherwise it's not a valid, it's going to go to the husband. Whereas by an Eved who's picking up on his own, so maybe he can shape the destiny of this object on his own. Maybe there's maybe we could say that even though where a father is giving something to his daughter, he has to say lo lech in order to eliminate any ambiguity as to his intent. In a case where the Eved is picking up something on his own, so there is no ambiguity. Whatever the Eved wants, that's what goes. So maybe we could say that by Isha it's actually more severe than by Eved. Right? Just, the Gemara is immediately going to reject that. The Gemara says the exact opposite. Says Marmalev lo kolshkeni, on the contrary, it's certainly the should be the other way. Ma im sheyi kizoch midas acher. If she, where she's getting it from someone else who can shape it, and obviously wants to shape it to keep it away from the husband, Atoime, you say, Zochi Shazocha Bailo, unless he says Lo Lech, Unless he says no yours either, we say that the wife acquires, the husband acquires. Kan, here, where there's nobody to shape his kinyan. The acquirement's acquired on his own. And there's certainly, if a case of the wife, you have to say lo lach, even though you, the father, obviously don't want the husband to have a part in it. Nevertheless, you have to qualify even more and say even the wife doesn't have a part of it. Certainly in a case where there's nobody to make a qualification, because you have it on its own, for sure the master gets it from the slave, which is much more reasonable, and it's much more the way we expect it to be. Okay, that's the end of that sugya. It says more, wait a minute, on our Mishnah. It's a new issue. It said how an Eved goes out of Avdus. Why did it say that if you knock off by an Eved Kanani one of his limbs which cannot be replaced, no, a shein or an eye, a tooth or an eye, that he goes free with that? Why does it mention that by Eved Kanani? Right? What? No, we talk about Eved Kanani. Shtar Shiur, we talk about Eved Kanani. And the Mishnah Eved Kanani, Halachakim was Eved Kanani. So why don't we mention Rosh Evorim Shein Mechozim? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Maria said Mimnei Machlokas because the following Machlokas, which the Mishnah didn't want to get involved in. Is tiny, those who in Torah get shiur, that even though you knocked out his eye or his tooth or one of the other heads and limbs, you still need a bill of release, shtar shiur. He's tiny that those who said ain't so shtar shiur. Since the Mishnah didn't want to get involved in it, so the Mishnah didn't mention the case at all. Okay? Pshita man, now here's that was all like a parenthetical remark, a very strange, it's a strange parenthetical remark, because now we go back to the previous sugya. But I want to tell you something interesting, which I saw in the Yerushalmi today. Yerushalmi Kiddushin says there's such a concept of halacha as an Eved Kanani, and then there's a concept of an Eved Goy. Eved Kanani is one that had a partial conversion. An Eved Goy never had a conversion. A Bidin, you're not supposed to have an Eved Goy for more than 12 months. But, you know, there are exceptions to the rule. Exceptions of that we have no Eved Kanani. So what happens if you have an Eved Goy? So that he says, even if we hold an Eved Kanani can get a shtar shiur, and an Eved Goy can't. You know why? Because the shtar shiur, if we say the Eved himself can receive it, it's because it's like a get. And an Eved Kanani is like a woman who receives a get, right? But an Eved Goy, he has no mitzvahs. He's not like a woman. He's not in the shaykh parasha of get at all. So the only way he can go free is by money, by being brought out by somebody else. It's interesting distinction. Okay, it's not really related to this, but the Yerushalmi brings it down in this kind of about this Gemara. Okay, the Pshita. Going back to the previous topic of the extent of the independent identity of the Eved. Pshita she'eved mekabel matana me'acher lacher. An Eved can receive a gift from a third party to another third party. He can, if Reuven wants to give Shimon a gift, they can use Levi's Eved as the conduit for that gift. But Reuven can say to Levi's Eved, here, you acquire this for Shimon's behalf. What? Right. That's allowed to do. That's why it works. Right, it's allowed to. That's why it's okay. Right, so it's okay. Okay? That's true. That's Pshita. Mara said it's partially that it works, right? Me'achel Rabbo. He also can accept from another person on behalf of his master. Me Rabbo la'atzmo lo. He can't accept from his Rebbe to himself because it goes back around and again, right? His master gives him a gift, so master gets it back, right? Boomerangs. However, so that's all that's pashut. What's the case which is an issue? Somebody else wants to give the slave a gift. That was a continuation. It's similar to Makbiyah Mitzia, right? Except it's better because here somebody else is giving it to the slave. So that makes it better. Like a father giving his daughter a gift and trying to avoid the husband. Okay? So what's the case? So what's the issue over there? Machlokas are meir, it's machlokas. Omer, if a guy says to an Eved, this is a brisa, you say to an Eved, Eilucha kesef zeh, here's this money, Shlo yel rabcha rishus bo, in order that your master should not have any jurisdiction over them, Zocha Eved, it doesn't work. The Eved zoichet it, and Zocha Rabbo, and the master zoichet it. Even Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir's good sister, Rabbi Meir said, you can't give your slave money for him to buy his freedom, right? Here too, if you give a slave something, a gift, you say, it's for you, not for your master, meaningless gesture. Doesn't do any good. Be consistent with their shita before that you can't give the slave money to buy himself out. The Eved acquires it, and lo zocho rabbo. Rather, the master's not getting it. What is our shaila? What can we ask? Me rabbo la'achir. What about, can his master give the Eved a gift to acquire on behalf of somebody else? And even according to Meir, this is a shaila. You can't give the Eved something for himself. But what about, can you give the Eved something that he should acquire for a third party? The master giving the Eved an object to acquire on behalf of a third party. Does that work or not? So there's actually a precedence for this. The way they say, just like a Eved acquires from somebody else on behalf of his master, so to be acquired from his master on behalf of somebody else. Do we say that or not? So let's get out from here. Somebody who borrows a cow, and the lender sends the cow to the borrower, biyad avdo, biyad beno, biyad shlucho, in the hands of his own slave, the lender's slave, his own his agent, or his own son. And this is actually shorthand, but this is what it says over there in Baba Metzia. It says there, Baba Metzia, is that from the moment my slave begins bringing you my cow, which you intend to borrow, you're chayiv an agent, which happens to the cow. You're showel, you're a bar, you're chayiv even in own thing. Right. So what do we see here? That my Eved can be mezoiche in the cow for you, right? Which is one potential resolution of our query from before. Not the intuitive one, but it seems to be a potential resolution, right? Yeah, I know you want to think that. Okay, but here we see fakir, right? We see the opposite. So it's more, no, not necessarily. So it's more, it's not necessarily proof. All is not lost. Person where the one would say, Adam Ras Tisha Shevet Zocha Mirabu Lacher. They have it acquired slave from his master or somebody else. Or Rabbi Lezer said not necessarily. Tipart to Eved Ivri. Maybe it's about where I sent it to through my Eved Ivri. Of course, my Eved Ivri is a Jew, he can be your shliach. Eved Kanani perhaps cannot, but Eved Ivri can. I don't like that answer so much, Rabbi Lezer's answer. Rabbi Yochanan's answer I like more. Rabbi Yochanan Tiftarini be'Eved Kanani. It's even going to be talking about, I said to you, it's my Eved Kanani. Tipater b'Omer lo, but you, the borrower, took a gamble. You said, I'm willing open your gate and send him out to me. He'll walk over the cow on his own. So the fact they said it with my Eved doesn't detract. It was a favor to you that instead of sending on its own, and you being Makabel Achrais immediately when it left my barnyard, that I sent it with my Eved. But in fact, you're chayiv and owns in the moment my Eved shepherds it out of the gate. Okay? Which is cute. Utsnina. And we learned that works. That because Yidigo b'Mashicha, if you conduct an animal by pulling it, or Karalo Ba, or you called it, and it came towards you, even if you haven't actually taken possession of it, From that point on, you can immediately be chayav as a shor. Right? But Yerushalmi wants to learn out from here whether an eved can acquire on behalf of others. And the interesting proof. It's a proof of Erevin. An Erev, the halacha is if I want to make an Erev Tavshil, an Erev Chatzerot, an Erev Tchumen for you, I have to be Mitzaki to you, the Erev. I have to give the loaves to somebody else and say, acquire these loaves on behalf of Ploini. Right? Otherwise it doesn't work for other people. So it says, I cannot bestow upon you a portion by giving it loy de beno to my son, ubito my daughter aktanim, which are minors, loy de avdo, nor can I give it to my slave, v'shivchaso, or female slave, aknanim, who are not Jewish, because their hand is like my hand, so it's not like giving it to a third party. This teaches us the teacher us that the Eved cannot acquire from his master somebody else. That's why I can't give it to my Eved to acquire it on your behalf. Says more, no, not necessarily. Depart the Krimeir. Maybe this Mishnah is going to Krimeir. Krimeir, Elvid Yad Eved Kiad Rabbo. Krimeir Taka says the hand of the slave is like the hand of the master. Our question, according to Rabbanon, says the Gemara, wait a minute. Vatani Ishto. Oh no, this is it's a question, right? Yeah, Vatani Ishto, wait a minute, doesn't say that you can give it via your wife, but I can give it to my wife to be zoich on your behalf, right? So it says the wife does work. So how could this work? Mayor, that can be a Kohen Mayor. So it says a woman is like a slave. She can't be mazaka for somebody else. There's more no. It's Malchokas Mayor what he held about wives. If you put the Tani, maybe this person is going like this Tani. The Tani we learned Ishto ain't pointed on Meiser Sheni. Your wife, if she's redeeming the Meiser Sheni, she can't redeem without paying the extra fifth. She can redeem it, but whenever an owner redeems Meiser Sheni, he has to add on extra fifth, extra 20%. So if your wife redeems your Meiser Sheni on your behalf, she still has to add on the extra 20% for your behalf, because she's the same legal entity as yourself, right? Ruya, right. Without paying extra fifth. So I could redeem it without paying the extra fifth. So according to Shem Ben Elazar, the wife is not like her man or her husband. This Mishnah in Erevin, which says that a wife can acquire the Erev on behalf of a third party, or the Tani D'Rai Meir, it's going to like Rabbi Shimon Elazar in Rai Meir. Whoever got every Rabbi says the hand of the slave is like that, and the master, but the low yada isha kabbalah was a wife's hand is not like her husband's hand. Okay. Rabbi Zir, Rabbi Chia, B'Shem, Rabbi Yochanan both said the answer it makes sense. She used to have the Evid his zoicha acquires the get shiur. She is no get shiur. You can acquire get shiur for a third party, not just for himself. I give an Evid a get shiur, and so you acquire this get shiur for another slave. Why? Because it's avodim will get kitei shiur, so you have to be on the same plane as the other Evid. So all avodim are on the same plane. And Evid's not on the same plane as a free man, so he can't do things for a free man, but he can be a shliach for another slave.
He's giving it to another slave, which really isn't Baal.
tissue. Okay. Sorry. Yes, I wasn't concentrating. Yeah.
If the Evid is giving it as a shliach for the other Evid, he's giving the shliach of the mitzvah.
No, he's a shliach Kabbalah. Hey, he might not be technically a shliach Kabbalah. You're right. He's a shliach Havah. I was saying, yeah, he's a shliach halacha. Yeah, it's good for the master. Okay, he's a shliach halacha, but that doesn't matter because since he's in the parsha of Get Shiur, he can do it. Just like the shliach Kabbalah can be a woman. Well, a shliach halacha can be a woman. Doesn't have to be a man. So it's like giving a woman a get to bring to another woman. Same idea. That's his finished. So it says he can't bring a get for a woman. She ain't no get isha. Because he's not in the parish of get isha, because Havad among themselves don't have marriage. Right? So if you want to ask me, what do you be mechadish? It's already Mishnah. I know a Mishnah like that. What's the Mishnah? It says, Hareach shivcha, if you say to a woman, you remain a slave. Vladich ben chorim, but I'm making your fetus free. I don't know why it's not a Darvashal Balon problem, but there isn't. So, Imai so Bara, if she's pregnant, Zochas lo, she acquires the freedom on behalf of her fetus. So we see here explicitly in this Mishnah that one Evet, the mother, can acquire a get shiur on behalf of another Evet. In this case, her own fetus, right? So what was Rabbi Yochanan being mechadish? Says Gemara, no, there it's different. That's talking out a chiddush. But in my case, a chiddush because Ubara also so keachad me'evarel. Her fetus is like one of her limbs, and therefore she's not accepting on behalf of the fetus. It's she accepting it, right? Now, of course, what it's going to bring up later, this is only like Rebbe who holds you can release half a slave, right? But she's not accepting it for the fetus, she's accepting it as herself. Because the upar is part of herself. Okay? So that's not a right. Now, Rabbi Barbachin and Rabbi Yochanan argues. He says, Rabbi Barbachin and Rabbi Yochanan said, Niravoim should kibel evet get shiur. And Evet can only accept his own get shiur. Va'al yikabel get kavsid, he can't accept the get of a fellow slave. He argues. Says an Evet can only accept his own get shiur, not anybody else's. Maybe you'll say the previous Mishnah argues on me. That would argue. Because it says, Harei ad shivcha. If you say to a woman, you remain slave. V'adech ben chorim, and your fetus will be free. If she's pregnant, she acquires it on his behalf. And we see here that you can be zoicha to another slave because she's zoicha for a fetus. Again, the same answer. They're also she's not receiving for somebody else's behalf because her fetus is like it's part of her. And again, according to the assumption, they can release half a slave. Okay? It's an interesting case. A person was dying. He said before he dies, I'm going to write out a shtar shiur for my slave. But he died without having actually done it. Okay? So he declared his intent, but didn't actually do it. What? Yes. So it doesn't matter, because Shchimera only works for Dinim Momnus. Avodim is not, it has elements of Isra, because you need to get shiur, you need a bill of release. Okay, so they didn't write it. So Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, they brought the kid to Rabbi Yochanan. Amar lo, so he said, Lo kol mimenu l'shabed should be bought. They can't make her work anymore. She does go free, but they can't make her work. But now, what about her kids? Any kids she has subsequently? No, avodim. They're avodim. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, ma should be shichrer. Ba, what did he release in her? So Maisiyah there, he released her from work, but he didn't release her from slavery. Okay, he didn't get around to it. Maybe he hadn't gotten around to it. But what he said is he intended to release her. He didn't even say that. He said he intended no longer to subjugate her. So we say mitzvah l'kaim divrei emes, can't subjugate her anymore. But her status as a slave, she doesn't lose. And of course, the heirs are not required; they're not obligated to write a bill of release if the father did not get around to it. Okay. Right, she just costs them money. But maybe she has a lot of kids. Or she could have a lot of kids. For stud. Rabbi Ab, Rabbi Yossi, Tarvei and Omri. Rabbi Ab and Yossi both said the Rebbe. This goes back on the pregnant case, right? I think it's going back in the pregnant case, but maybe it's going in this case as well. That you release, it could be going in this case as well. If you wasn't meant to release her just from Maisiyah dying, is she slavish or not? So it's like Rebbe, the Rebbe Omar, Adam Shara Chatzi Avdo. Maybe say release half your slave. So sometimes you release horizontally, meaning half of it. Sometimes vertically, meaning you release it from part of her obligation. So it's interesting. It's not just mitzvah l'kaim divrei emes, but she actually has now a partial freedom in that she no longer has to work. Okay. Says Rabbi Ab, Rabbi Yossi, Tarvei and Omri. Oh, just there. If you own all of your property to both your avodim simultaneously, they both go free because you didn't retain any ownership. But they each have rights over each other because of brera, right? It's not clarified who gets what. So therefore, they each have to release each other. They both go free, but they each have to release each other. Rabbi Yochanan said that's only the Rebbe. So the Rebbe Omar, Adam Shachar Chatzi Avdo. This Rebbe said that you can release half of your slave. Because here, if each one has to release the other one, so the master only released half and gave the other half to the other guy, right? So that's the case. The master's only releasing half of each slave and relinquishing the other half for the other person's release. So that will work quite to Rebbe. Rabbi Zir, Rabbi Ba. Rabbi Zir said to Rabbi Ba, Adam Rosh Evet Zocha Me'Rabo La'achim. This L'chora teaches us that a person can acquire from an Evet can acquire from his master on behalf of somebody else. Because here each Evet is acquiring himself with the intent of being mishabit himself to the other person, right? Or the master is saying, I'm giving you all my property, but what it really means, since he wrote both simultaneously, is it's giving us half his property through Evan number 1 to Evan number 2, and half his property through Evan number 2 to Evan number 1, because that's the way it works. So Adam Rashi said, Papa Yudam Rav, Matzaver. No. What do you think? That's a two-step process. First, they're zoche the property for each other, and then they go free. No, it's ka'achas. L'ka'achas. Avodim v'nechosim yotzu cheres. They go out simultaneously. Right? It's not like that. It's simultaneously. As they acquire all the property, they go free. So you don't need to have all this convolution of looking at his two stages, half of the time, everything occurs simultaneously. Okay? Okay, getting back to the previous case. Harayat, the opposite of the previous case. Harayat bas chayr. You go free. But your fetus should remain in Evet. Interesting, right? He wants to retain the rights over the womb. Or Vlado Ketzibo. No such thing. Can't separate. Even Rabbi Yossi. If she's free, then the slave, then the womb, the fetus is free. Even Rabbi Yossi is free. Chacham Rimi Lo Sa Klum. Klum say the opposite. Neither of them is free. Neither the mother nor the fetus, because he retained the fetus. That's a portion of her. So she's also retained. Or Rabbi Lezer said, Kach bish Rabbi Yeshua Abba Mishnah. Rabbi Yeshua, the father of the Mishnah, it means he wrote all the prices, said, Shnei ben Choy, they're both free. Rabbi Yami, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, Shnei Avodim, they're both slaves. Okay? Now, Al Daited Rabbi Yochanan, Nicha, Kor Rabbi Yochanan, it's okay, it makes sense. Machlekes between Rabbi Yosef Gli and Chachamim, because Rabbi Yosef Gli say that they're both free, and Chachamim say they're both slaves, right? But according Al Daited Rabbi Lazar, but according to Rabbi Lazar, everybody holds they're both slaves. Both Chachamim and Rabbi Yosef Gli hold they're both slaves. No. Everybody holds they're both free. Sorry. Tanak Rabbi Yosef holds they're free, and Chachamim hold they're free. Again, according to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yosef holds they're free, and Tanak Chachamim hold they're both slaves. According to Rabbi Lezer, however, everybody agrees that they're all free. So what's the machlokus over here? Elakini. Well, this is the way to read the price. Dvar kayomim di Rabbi Yosef Gli. Rabbi Yosef Gli holds you can divide up the greater distinction between the mother and the fetus. Chachamim say no, you can't create a distinction. And that is a machlokus. What's a machlokus? Rabbi Lezer, Kach b'Shem Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Mishnah Shnei ben, they're both free. Rabbi Yochanan said, Shnei Avodim, they are both slaves. Now all this, the Gillian Ephraim throws in, Udolok Rebbe is not like Rebbe. Because the Rebbe Omar, Adam Meshachar Chatzi Avdo. Rebbe said you can release after your slave. So you release after your slave, but why can you release the Ubor, the mother without the Ubor? Right? Even there must be that this going according to period that you can't, it must be that you can't release this going to period can't release half a slave. Now there's a whole discussion of Sameach here, if the Babli agrees with this. It seems like this Yerushalmi is like a rivet, but the Rambam argues. Rambam says you can free one without the other, and the Sameach says that's to with whether you hold Uber Yerech Imo, Uber not Yerech Imo. Too complicated for us. Halachadam, Be'ema Gas, a large animal. How is it acquired? By Mesira, by giving over the rein or the collar. And a small animal, sheep, by picking up the red bear. They both say Chachamim no. Be'ema Dakar because we should enough to pick up a small animal. You can pull it also. Pulling it is sufficient. Okay, even though you can pick up a sheep, you don't have to pick it up in order to acquire it. Rav Huna Amar Eid Moseira Koineh. Moseira is like Masira. Masira doesn't work with Nichsei Ager. Obviously not. Nichsei Ager, private Ager after he dies, what's their status? The Ger dies. Everything's after. Right, so there's no Masira, there's no giving over. Nothing can be given over, right? So by Nichsei Ager, there's no such thing. So says more Rabbi Chizkiah, Rabbi Bar Lezer Shah. They ask the following question. You have 10 camels connected to each other. Mosar lo Masir Shachamim gave him the reins of one of them. Kulim Kana is acquire all of them. Lo Kana El Osu Shemosar Lo Gavada, only the one which you gave over. How many acquired? So says the Gemara, Rabbi Chizkiah Amar. Doesn't answer. It doesn't answer. So it says more Chizkiah Amar, Mishochas Abeim Azuli Knoso. It doesn't answer it. Mishochas Abeim Azuli Knoso. Acquire this animal in order to pull this animal in order to acquire it. Kana, of course that works. Okay? Liknos Vlados Seha. If you said pull the animal, not to acquire the animal itself, but only to acquire its fetuses. Local. Doesn't work. Liknosa, he lives the Vladoseh, said acquire it and its fetuses, Kana, that works. So says more, wait a minute. Ilu Emil Chavero. Actually, this is a, well, let's see. You said to a person, acquire an animal, not for the animal itself, but acquire the load upon it. Shema, the Gillian Frank takes our next word, which is important. Shema kana, does it work? Because I can't keep you an animal and say, I don't want you to acquire the animal, I only want you to acquire the load which is on the animal's back. Say to the fetuses, I can't give you the reins of the animal and say, I only want you to acquire the animal, the fetuses and not the animal. So it's obviously quite that the fetus is lad yerech imo, right? Because of uber yerech imo, then of course you can acquire half of an animal. But if you hold that it's a separate and distinct entity within the animal, it's like you can't pull an animal in order to acquire only the load on top of it and not the animal itself. You can't pull an animal in order to acquire only the fetus and not the animal itself. Okay? Rabbi Yosef said, wait a minute. Chada. No, that's not true. The only time you can acquire the fetus is if it wasn't yet pregnant. It's like Shabola. You can't acquire the womb. The womb is parts of the animal. I guess you can acquire the womb. But he wanted it's a Davar Shabola mission. Of course they're going to acquire the animal's womb, which is part of the animal. But if the animal's already pregnant, also they made it should be ke'echa me'evarel. That's like one of the limbs. Then you can't acquire the fetus. So obviously you hold that uber yerachimo. It's part and parcel of the mother. Just like you acquire half an animal, you can pull an animal in order to acquire the fetuses which are within it. So you can pull an animal in order to acquire its four quarters or its hind quarters. Same thing, you're going to pull an animal in order to acquire the fetuses. Okay? Rabbi Avram Ravuna B'Shem Rab said, there's a couple of cool cases. Harein the Nugget Basko. You're pouring a bottle of wine, but you didn't actually agree to pay for it yet. You didn't stipulate a price. You bought a bottle of wine, v'yimevaza biyada, and it broke in your hands. Lo chayaba, your potter. You don't have to pay. Okay? Even though you're pouring the wine. If it's you're like a shomer chino. You're both from paying. You didn't acquire yet. Rabbi Yosef ben said, that's pashut. But the chiddush is even like this. L'mala go chanusa. You brought it into your store, and you're pouring the bottle in your store, your own store. He only brought it into his store in order that nobody else should take it. But he has not yet acquired it, therefore he doesn't owe the money for it. The Mashiach doesn't work in that case. Why? Because the general principle of Mashiach only works after Pisuk Dami, after you set the price. If you do Mashiach or pouring before the price is set, it's not a kinyan. You haven't yet acquired it. Okay? Okay, let's say, so we haven't haggled on the price yet, but at least let's consider him to have acquired at the lowest possible price, right? Because he's pouring it. The following price to teach us, not even at the lowest possible price. The Tziyato we learned over there. Interesting case. You got a problem. You're selling your wine to a guy. If you deliver the wine before you receive the funds, you can't accept the funds anymore. You know why? Because yain nesach. So you have to make sure to get the money before the deal goes through. Otherwise, it's getting hanor from yain nesach. Okay, it's a cute chag. So amarchi eno l'nochri. I talked to Nora. Were you saying yeah? Okay. Amarchi eno l'nochri. Plus, I can shlomo that if you set the price before the guy poured the wine, right? So then the psika is the kinyan. So then, as he pours it, he's pouring his own wine, right? And therefore, it's not a problem. You're not getting anor from yain nesach because he owes the money already from before yain nesach becomes an issue. However, if he pours the wine before you set the price, so he's pouring your wine, and then you're selling it to him after you made it usher, you're getting money from Yain Nesach. That's no good. Okay? Yeah. Except as far as the Bastam Yedo, we are Matir Bano. Because now, going, we say don't really use it. But theoretically, the Talach is on the books. Im Oimer Achetiklo B'Shar Pochas. Now, if this price, it makes no sense if you say that the Goy acquires it even without haggling, at least at the minimal price. Because then I feel that even if you measure before having set the price, you ask the Moshe Pisa, it should be as if you set the price at Shlo Moda before the pouring, by virtue of the fact that it's also under those circumstances, it must be that there's no acquisition, even at the lowest possible price, unless all the haggling is done. Okay? Shmuel Amar ain't a nasib b'zigisa. This is a person who's carrying you're carrying a vessel, and the vessel v'mischatfulei, and you set the price already, and then there's something in the vessel, it was measured. So the chora, everything is said and done, and then it's grabbed, he stole the money, right? The mischatful should be miyodei. It was grabbed out of his hand. So you're saying, too bad. It was measured, price was set, even though it was grabbed out of your hands, you're liable, you have to pay for it, despite the fact that you never actually enjoyed the fruits of your purchase. That's not a chiddush. This is a chiddush. That's true in Tyre and its environs. B'Kesarin in Caesarea, and its environs. Wherever he lived. No, we're Jews. Until we measure a second time, we don't trust it. So therefore, it's not a valid sale until it's measured a second time. So it's stolen between the first and second measure. I don't have to pay for it, right? Our manner is mechazula maskula. We measure it over again. So there, until it's measured the second time, it's not considered to be a full and valid sale. It ain't over till it's over. Okay, we'll stop here.